Hello there, everyone! Welcome to episode number 691 of this here electronic engineering podcast called Amelia's Weekly Fish Fry. Brought to you by eejournal.com and written, produced, and hosted by me, Amelia Dalton. Folks, today we're diving into the future of autonomous aerial infrastructure with Doug Muhlbauer from Birdstop. Doug and I chat about the challenges of building drone-in-a-box systems. Check out what real-world industry adoption looks like, and explore the critical roles that reliability and regulation play in this space, and what the future looks like for this innovative drone company. Also this week, keeping with our drone theme, I check out how drones are now being used to determine the ages of dinosaur fossils in Alberta's Dinosaur Provincial Park. But first, please welcome Doug from Birdstop to Fish Fry. Hi, Doug. Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, thanks very much for having me.
Absolutely. Okay, so autonomy is at the heart of your platform. So, what are the biggest hurdles in creating a truly hands-off drone in a box system? And what steps did Birdstop take to overcome them?
It's interesting. When I came to Birdstop, it was really the technology was a known hard. You know, the autonomous landing, the autonomous takeoff, navigating in airspace. Those are all things that I thought about a lot, and we knew they'd be difficult, but they're solvable. The real hurdles came in the public safety in complex, unpredictable, kind of high stakes conditions, right? When you have dynamic airspace, manned aircraft, loss of comms, everything that you can imagine that goes on while that drone's in the area. Engineering for all of that has been the real fun part. So as far as handling those, it's really you have to systematically hunt for each of those edge cases and deliberately test around it. So the pilots here hate us because we're always, every time the weather gets really bad, the winds kick up, we're trying to get the drones out there to test, and they're trying to keep the fleet safe. So it's this struggle between the pilots and the engineering team, but every failure we have out there is a great data point for us.
So, Doug, many industries are exploring remote monitoring. So, where are you seeing the strongest real world adoption today? And what use cases have surprised you the most?
Well, our strongest traction has been with energy utility companies, critical infrastructure, public safety, kind of where you would expect it to be. Customers that have a lot of area they're responsible for and limited budgets to monitor and keep those areas safe. So we're really seeing a lot of, whether it's police forces, fire forces, energy companies, that sort of adoption has really taken off.
All right. So, Doug, reliability and uptime in harsh or remote environments is super important here. So, how do your solutions address these issues, especially when human intervention just isn't practical?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's no shortcuts for this reliability problem. So it's just continuous testing, continuous improvement. We learn so much in the real world that we don't in the lab. Fortunately, we're headquartered in Detroit. So this year was a perfect winter for us. You know, sustained sub-zero weather, ice, snow, freeze thaw cycles that just wouldn't quit. And the company as a whole made a deliberate choice to keep our systems out during the winter, overnight, operational, and record and monitor every single one of those failures and every single one of those data points. So we learned quite a bit, whether it's battery performance, thermal management, just the mechanics of the drone and the perch and how it operates in those conditions. The truth is, you can't say you're reliable if you've kept the machine in a comfortable situation. So getting uncomfortable, putting it out there, that's really taught us a lot.
So, Doug, regulation is always a factor in drone deployment. So, talk to me about how regulations have shaped your strategy at Birdstop.
Yeah, so For us, regulations, the FAA regulations, BV loss waivers are kind of the heart of everything we do here. We adopted very early on a compliance first design approach. So we wanted to make sure that, we could build the smartest autonomous drone and perch capability out there. But if it was not in compliance, it wouldn't be used by any of the public sectors where it really mattered. So we design, whether it's the AI, the autonomous flight, the domain airspace awareness, keeping it safe while it's up, or even the landing algorithm. That's all designed with the compliance first motto. But, we're still finding ways to walk the line between pushing the envelope and being able to anticipate what's coming next, whether it's an FAA 108 regulation or a use case that we hadn't anticipated, trying to stay ahead of that while keeping within those regulations.
That makes sense. So looking ahead, where do you see autonomous aerial infrastructure headed in the future?
It's really in the near term, it's all about coordinating flights in what can quickly become a crowded BVLOS corridor. Smarter fleet management, being able to hand off missions between multiple drones, and really building that operational playbook for how these are going to get used by public safety or infrastructure companies. Midterm, I'd say it's more shared infrastructure. So being able to have a perch drone set up, we think of it like a cell tower, where it's not necessarily a property asset, but it's something that can be used to do the most good by the folks that need it at the time. And then really in the long term, I think that's an airspace presence as a utility. We think of these as getting any sensor, any technology on the drone on site where it's needed most, autonomously and within minutes. And that could be thermal detection, it could be gas detection, acoustic detection, comms relay capabilities. It's all about getting what's needed on site as fast as possible. And then the use case or the user's problem gets narrowed down into, instead of what can I do to get information about what's happening on the site, it's really what am I going to do with the information I'm getting? And the how becomes an afterthought.
All right, Doug. Well, it's time for your off the cuff question. So, if you could have one meal right now, it doesn't matter if it's on the other side of the world, you need a passport to get there, what would you have?
Oh, it's a great question. We've really, my family and I, since moving to Detroit, have really adopted some of the local food culture here. If I buy anything other than a Detroit style pizza, my kids are going to be upset with me. But today in particular, it's a kind of gray, cooler day here in Detroit. I think a big steaming bowl of ramen somewhere in Tokyo would be just about perfect.
I love it. Same here. That sounds wonderful. Well, Doug, I think that's all I have time for today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. I really appreciate your time.
I don't get to cover it on this podcast very much, but folks, I love dinosaurs. I fall asleep to dinosaur documentaries. I am planning on getting a dinosaur tattoo. So when I saw this story, I just had to share. So there is a new study coming out of McGill University in Canada that could revolutionize how scientists date dinosaur fossils at the Dinosaur Provincial Park in Alberta, Canada. And how? By using drones. Sure, paleontology will benefit from the techniques used in this study, but drone-assisted 3D mapping could also help us more accurately reconstruct ancient ecosystems, help us better understand the history of the Earth, and how changes in biodiversity could change the future of our planet. Okay, so why is this new drone-assisted method better than previous fossil dating techniques? Okay, so if you didn't know, Dinosaur Provincial Park in Alberta, Canada is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and holds an absolutely unmatched collection of fossils dating back to the late Cretaceous period. For decades, paleontologists have relied on a distinct rock boundary, the contact between the Oldman and Dinosaur Park formations as a reference point to estimate the ages of fossil quarries in the park. To do this, they compare how high or low a fossil site is relative to that boundary. However, this technique only gives a rough age estimate. And this new study reveals that that boundary actually fluctuates in elevation as much as 12 meters, even over relatively short distances. Alexander Demers-Potvin, the researcher who led this study, explains it like this. We've essentially shown that the dating method used for decades in Dinosaur Provincial Park may not be as reliable as previously thought. The reference point itself varies significantly. Then our estimates of individual fossil ages could be off by a considerable margin. So, Demers-Potvin and co-author Professor Hans Larsen tackled these issues by deploying drones to take around 1,000 high-resolution photos of critical fossil locations within the park. These aerial photographs were then analyzed using a technique called structure from motion photogrammetry, which enabled the researchers to build a highly accurate 3D model of the landscape, which they then cross-referenced with GPS coordinates gathered from on-site. And what they found was super cool. The results showed that it may be possible to estimate fossil ages by identifying their source sedimentary layers and tracing those over long distances. Demers-Potvin says this about the future of their research. This opens the door to a more refined approach for understanding how different dinosaur species succeeded one another over time. By mapping these sedimentary layers over a broader area, we could develop a much clearer picture of biodiversity shifts in an ancient terrestrial ecosystem. And thank you, drones. So if you want even more information about this cool new study out of McGill University, or if you'd like more information about Birdstop, I've included a couple links below the player on this week's Fish Frying page on eejournal.com and in the description for this week's YouTube episode as well. Hey, have you checked out EE Journal on social media yet? Well, you should. You can find us at facebook.com/EEJournal. If LinkedIn is more your thing, I dig it. You can follow us or me on LinkedIn. And we are also on Blue Sky Social and Mastodon as well. We also have a YouTube channel, youtube.com/EEJournal. Folks, it is chock full of all kinds of techie videos, including our very popular Chalk Talk webcast series, hosted by me. And of course, you can subscribe to our EE Journal YouTube channel as well. Thank you everyone for tuning in. If you know of any cool new technology or if you just want to chat, shoot me a line at Amelia, that's AMELIA, at eejournal.com, or post a comment on our forums on EE Journal. For the week of July 24th, 2026, I'm Amelia Dalton, and you've been fried.